Hello, fellow marketers. I'm Brian Bowie, and welcome back to the Directive R&D Lab. Today, I'm joined by a returning lab partner, Mr. Josh Nelson. Josh, welcome back to the lab.
Hi, good to be back.
Glad to have you. We're going to be talking about a really fun topic, which is competitor PPC campaigns. We get this question all the time, like, should I bid on my competitor keywords or their brand name within Google Ads? Or should I not? I see people bidding on my own brand and they're trying to take up market share when people are looking for me. So should I do the same to them? So a very popular topic. And I think from working with clients over the years, we've seen it be hard to produce results, right? Because a user is searching for something else. They're searching for your competitor. And even though you show up, it may be an expensive click for you to try to attract that traffic. But we found a way that might work. So really excited to jump into it. I'm gonna share my screen and we'll go through a quick deck. See my screen all right?
Yep.
So did I miss any context around PPC competitor campaigns and why they maybe don't work for a lot of people?
I think you hit it like right on the nail. So yeah, it's one of those like really attractive things on the PPC side, just so that you can like piggyback off of competitors. But 90% of the time, what we see, it's just it doesn't really work because you're not factoring in like what the intent is, and that's kind of what we're going to be going through today.
Yeah, I kind of jumped forward, but can you explain a little bit, go even deeper into like why this is such a big opportunity for SaaS marketers or PPC managers in general? Like, why is it such a good opportunity for you to take market share and potentially drive demand for your services?
Yeah, totally. So bringing it back a little bit, like if we look at the entire like B2B buyer journey and those sorts of behaviors within that journey,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the research shows that people start off their research phase with like a brand already in mind. I think that the actual like statistic number is like 70% or 68%.
That's high,
Um,
yeah.
so like you could really tap into another brand, and if someone's searching for like one of your guys' competitors, you know that they're looking for a solution that's similar to yours, and then you
Mm-hmm.
just piggyback off of that demand and kind of go from there. And the trick is to first position yourself in front of them. That's one
Okay.
part, and that's just the targeting side of things. But then you have to like think about where their head is at and what the intent is, right? Like if they're
Yeah.
searching for um
You want me to jump into it?
base mate, yeah, you can go for it. Yeah.
Let's jump into it. But I think to reiterate, you might not be the leader. If you are the leader in your space, awesome. You might want to protect that. But if you're not, you can leverage the huge demand for the number one competitor in your space. They may have hundreds of thousands of monthly searches, tens of thousands that you can potentially acquire that traffic and potentially convert them. So let's jump into how we like to approach it. And yeah, can you dive into like more about the intent of understanding where they're at and what they want to see?
Yeah, so yeah, on the targeting side of things, just so that we get to the people who are still evaluating vendors, you want to throw in keywords such as like alternatives, pricing, versus, and not really stick to just whatever the competitor brand name is. That could work, but if you really want to start off with a bang, throw on one of those branded keywords with the modifiers on there. And then, like I was alluding to before, you got to figure out what that messaging is going to be and kind of um, line up to where their intent is and where their mindset is at. So what we found is just having custom messaging that matches that language of the search and where their head is at, and offer something like an industry comparative report, an analyst report, and on the B2B side of things, we find like the Magic Quadrant report or any Forrester Wave reports
Mm-hmm.
work really well, just so it's like a third party resource. And then that's the offer side of things. But then on the messaging side and like the actual ad side of things, um, you should really like sort of like position yourself as not necessarily trying to sell your product to them,
Right.
you're selling information to them. Really, you're just
Yeah.
you're trying to provide them with a report that is going to help them through their buying process. And it's just that industry report. They're going to get their hands on it
Mhm.
eventually if they're evaluating vendors. So why not have it come from your brand when they're searching for another brand?
Exactly. Yeah. So having the messaging on the landing page be kind of unbiased and just mainly focus on value add, that goes a long way. And I think one thing to call out, like we highly suggest use these modifiers like alternatives, pricing versus evaluation, competition. I might be missing a few, but going after just the brand keyword of the competitor brand can be very dangerous. So we highly recommend using these modifiers paired with that brand name. If you just go after the brand name, it's very risky. You don't know the intent of that search. It could be for customers of that brand to log in or just go to that website or for support. So having these alternatives and trying to marry that modifier with some form of intent of pre-purchase intent is kind of key to this whole thing working, right?
Totally.
All right. So we talked a little bit about why and now a little bit about how. Let's give a visual representation of the approach and how it could all work together. Oh, pricing is another great one. So can you walk us from left to right, like how within a Google ad account, you can make this all flow?
Yeah, so just starting off with the campaign flow, on the keyword targeting side, like what we were talking about before, just throwing in those modifiers for people that are still in that evaluation stage, and then pair that with ad copy that is focused on the comparative report and not necessarily like see why we are better than these people, or just
Mm-hmm.
positioning that third party asset in front of them. And you could throw in like a question, like in this situation, we're just calling out that competitor. And that's going to
Mm-hmm.
kind of help out with like quality score, right? So if we're targeting like BMC alternatives or BMC pricing, that BMC is going to show up in the ad copy as well. So you get that ad relevancy up.
Mm-hmm.
But really just having that ad copy be the hook for what the landing page is offering, like any other sort of ad copy that you would run. And then on the landing page side of things, it's just straight and to the point, not trying to sell the product, just trying to sell the asset.
Mm-hmm.
And like they click on the ad and they just get brought to the ITSM vendor Magic Quadrant
Mm-hmm.
and just straight up just get the report. And we provide them with the information, and we have their information as well so that sales reps can follow up. One of the key things here is just to make sure that like the sales team understands the context behind that lead.
Right.
So just like any other campaign, again, just make sure that you're communicating with the sales team, giving them that background, like, hey, these people came in from an industry report. They just downloaded the industry report. They didn't come here looking for a demo, so you might need to approach it a little bit differently.
Yeah. Have a different nurture. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, if you can see on the right, it's kind of small here, but everything is focused on like the value you're going to get from the report, not the value you're going to get from like that particular vendor or that tool. So that's highly important where you're not pushing your product, but you're pushing value and education. And then understanding that now that you have their information, you provided value to them. On the thank you page, you could start to maybe introduce who you are and maybe a follow-up action to activate them, as well as in your email nurture or however you want to follow up with that lead. Another thing too, sometimes we run into copyright issues, and that will happen if you're, the competitor is trademarked and you can get flagged in some cases. You can still have personalized messaging that speaks to that user, like see how the top X tools stack up or evaluate the top vendors. It still speaks to that intent and can still work. In the copy here, even in the description, who's on your ITSM shortlist, it still is mainly not pushing that brand, but is just asking that user, like, who are you, evaluating, who's kind of narrowed down and read this report to really, help you make a decision. So yeah, all that works. And that's kind of our recommended approach to test with competitor campaigns. So anything to add last, Josh, before I exit this deck?
Yeah, just following up on just how you can kind of nurture a little bit more, since these guys aren't going to necessarily be demo ready. You could take anybody who's converted from this campaign, then enroll them into a nurture campaign in Google Ads, retarget them with demo offers or whatever that next step is going to be.
Great point. Yep. It's not just a one step. We know that in SaaS, it's going to take multiple touch points and multiple value adds to convince someone to choose you as a preferred vendor and solution for what they're looking for. But yeah, this is huge. I would recommend people test it and just put yourself in that buyer's shoes and and understand the intent. And same with all campaigns, but we know that competitor campaigns can sometimes burn you when you're spending a ton on a competitor that has so much search volume. And this is a way to get around that and see strong results. We definitely have seen good results with using this method. Even though the volume might be small for each of those modified terms, when you add them up all together, it's a lot of, it could be a lot of searches and provide a lot of leads of people that are in a healthy stage in your buying funnel. Mm-hmm. So yeah, any last thoughts, Josh?
I think we summed it up perfectly. It's really just about lining up with the intent and making sure that the keywords that you're targeting are correct. Sometimes you're not going to have like a third party report to use. If that's the case, then still approach it from that comparison sort of framework. Mm-hmm. And you can create like a landing page that compares your product to that specific competitor, mm-hmm. and just line up the ad copy with that as well. So that there's still ways to go about it without an analyst report.
That makes sense. Yeah, this isn't the end for competitor campaign strategies. We can do some fun stuff in paid social when they have certain skills or certain tools and things like that, or you have maybe a list of people that are using a certain tool that you want to try to capture and transition from. So we will cover that in later labs. But thank you so much, Josh, for joining this one. Hopefully it provides some value to the audience, and we'll catch you in the next lab. Thanks again, Josh.
Right on, my pleasure.
All right, take care.
See ya.